In today's episode, we're diving into 5 shark attacks that turned dream vacations into absolute nightmares. From an 8-year-old girl snatched from a tourist boat by an 18-foot great white in South Africa, to a spear fisherman who ignored all warnings about bull sharks in Reunion's deadly waters. Let's begin with the first story, where a family shark cage diving adventure became every parent's worst fear. It was July 15, 2016, and the waters off Gansbaai, South Africa, churned with predatory anticipation. Morning light pierced the Atlantic swells as seabirds circled overhead, drawn by the metallic scent of blood and fish oil that marked these waters as Shark Alley, where two oceans collide to create the perfect hunting ground for great whites. The Richardson family had journeyed from Manchester for their dream vacation. Mark and Helen had spent 3 years saving to bring their 3 children to Cape Town's marine wonderland. 8-year-old Emma was their youngest and most enthusiastic explorer, carrying a waterproof notebook filled with shark sketches and facts she'd memorized from countless documentaries. Her infectious curiosity about marine predators had convinced the entire family to book this cage diving adventure. Captain Peter Vandermeer commanded the tour vessel White Death, a 40-foot boat engineered specifically for shark encounters. 15 years of guiding tourists through these dangerous waters had taught him to respect both the ocean and its apex predators. His crew maintained strict safety protocols while operating the steel cage that would allow visitors to observe great whites from relative protection. Great whites represent evolution's perfect killing machine. These apex predators stretch beyond 20 feet and exceed 5,000 pounds, wielding bite forces over 4,000 pounds per square inch. Multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth can slice through bone and muscle with surgical precision. During feeding frenzies triggered by blood in the water, great whites become unpredictably aggressive, capable of explosive breaches that launch their massive bodies completely airborne. The morning had delivered exactly what tourists hoped for. Vandermeer positioned his vessel over a known hunting ground and began chumming, dispersing fish blood, oil, and bait to attract sharks. Within 30 minutes, 3 massive dorsal fins cut through the surface like dark blades, circling the boat in calculated patterns. Emma pressed against the railing, her notebook forgotten as she watched the predators patrol beneath them. Her parents focused on fitting diving gear for their cage descent while crew members managed operations and monitored shark behavior. In the controlled excitement of a successful sighting, nobody noticed Emma slip away from the group. She wandered toward the boat's stern, drawn by what appeared to be an even larger shadow moving in deeper water. The chumming had created an extensive slick of blood and oil stretching far beyond the cage area. Emma leaned over the low railing, straining to glimpse the dark shapes beneath the surface. The boat rocked in the ocean swell. Emma lost her balance, pitching forward as her small body slid over the railing. She hung suspended with only her legs remaining on the diving platform, her torso submerged in the bloody chum slick. The 18-foot male great white had been circling beneath the vessel, agitated by the blood and unusual surface activity. When Emma's form entered the water, predatory instincts triggered instantly. The massive shark rose from the depths with devastating speed, jaws opening wide as it breached the surface. The great white's mouth clamped around Emma's torso, lifting her completely from the water. Its bite force crushed ribs and punctured organs, while razor-sharp teeth severed arteries and muscle tissue. The shark shook her violently, its massive head thrashing before diving beneath the surface, taking the small girl into the depths. A spray of blood and seawater marked the attack site as Emma's notebook floated on the crimson surface. Helen Richardson's screams pierced the air, while Mark dove toward the stern, finding only churning water and expanding blood. Captain Vandermeer immediately cut engines and radioed emergency services as his crew deployed life rings and scanning equipment. Coast Guard vessels, police boats, and volunteer craft converged within minutes. Divers searched the murky depths repeatedly while helicopters scanned the surface, The 18-foot great white had vanished with Emma's body, never to be recovered despite 3 days of intensive searching across hundreds of square miles. South African maritime authorities ruled the attack a tragic accident with no operator negligence found. New safety protocols immediately required higher railings, dedicated child supervisors, and constant headcounts during shark diving operations. The Richardson family returned to England devastated, their dream vacation transformed into unimaginable tragedy. Emma's school held a memorial service where a teacher shared passages from the Shark Research Notebook, remembering a bright girl whose passion for marine life had ultimately sealed her fate. While Emma's curiosity about great whites drew her fatally close to feeding predators, Antoine Moreau's decades of diving experience would prove equally dangerous when overconfidence placed him alone with a hunting bull shark in murky Caribbean waters. It was September 22, 2014, and Reunion Island remained gripped by fear following devastating shark attacks that had transformed this Indian Ocean paradise into a danger zone. Heavy overnight rains had turned coastal waters murky brown, creating perfect hunting conditions for the island's apex predators. Antoine Moreau, a 34-year-old construction worker and experienced spearfisherman, refused to let recent attacks stop him from providing for his wife Marie and 2 young children. Despite government warnings and beach closures, his 15 years of diving experience made him confident he could safely navigate waters that had claimed less skilled swimmers. He chose the St. Denis River mouth, where freshwater mixed with salt created nutrient-rich conditions, attracting bait fish and their predators. This notorious bull shark feeding ground becomes especially dangerous during rainy season when mountain runoff carried organic matter into the sea. Bull sharks rank among the world's most dangerous predators, thriving in both salt and fresh water. These aggressive, territorial hunters cause more human attacks than any species except great whites. Large females reach 10 feet and 500 pounds, delivering bite forces exceeding 1,300 pounds per square inch. Unlike great whites that strike and retreat, bull sharks attack persistently and repeatedly. Antoine entered the murky water alone, visibility limited to mere feet. 20 minutes into his dive, he spotted a large grouper beneath coral outcropping and took careful aim with his spear gun, completely focused on his target. The 10-foot female bull shark had been tracking him since he entered, using her lateral line system to detect electrical impulses from his heartbeat and muscle contractions. She followed at a distance through murky water, assessing this intruder in her territory. As Antoine fired at the grouper, the bull shark exploded upward from directly below. Her massive jaws opened wide, targeting his legs in a devastating first strike that caught his left thigh, teeth slicing through wetsuit into muscle and bone. The crushing bite severed his femoral artery, sending blood jets into murky water as she shook violently, tearing away large sections of flesh before releasing him. Antoine kicked frantically toward the surface with his remaining good leg, blood pouring from the massive wound. The bull shark circled and struck again, this time targeting his torso. Her jaws closed around his midsection with devastating force, driving him deeper as teeth punctured his abdomen and crushed ribs. The second attack proved fatal, teeth penetrating his chest cavity and puncturing lungs and heart. She held her grip for 30 seconds before releasing his lifeless body into the depths. Antoine's remains washed ashore 3 days later, discovered by morning joggers. The extensive injury shocked investigators. His left leg nearly severed and massive bite marks covering his arms and torso indicated a prolonged, vicious attack typical of bull shark behavior. Authorities launched intensive hunts, capturing a 10-foot female whose stomach contained human remains and wetsuit pieces matching Antoine's gear. His death prompted renewed beach closure demands and highlighted the difficult balance between traditional island life and growing shark threats. The community supported Marie and their children, but Antoine's overconfidence in familiar waters during dangerous conditions had cost everything. For Jessica Chen, similar confidence as a strong swimmer would lead her into tiger shark territory. It was March 8, 2015, and the water surrounding Nassau, Bahamas shimmered like polished turquoise beneath the Caribbean sun. Perfect temperatures and crystal visibility created ideal conditions, while gentle trade winds stirred just enough surface movement to keep the water alive and oxygenated. For newlyweds Jessica and David Chen, this represented paradise, the romantic escape they'd envisioned to celebrate their fresh marriage. Jessica Chen brought impressive credentials to their aquatic adventure. A former All-American swimmer at UCLA, she'd channeled her water expertise into marine biology, graduating at 26 with both athletic confidence and scientific knowledge. Her comfort in ocean environments had convinced David to rent a small boat, promising him access to secluded reefs and pristine snorkeling far from crowded resort beaches. David, a San Francisco software engineer, felt less natural on water but trusted his wife's expertise completely. Jessica had crafted their entire itinerary around marine exploration, snorkeling, diving, and reef discovery that showcased the Bahamas' underwater reputation. This was her domain, and David happily followed her lead into deeper adventures. They'd anchored their 22-foot rental vessel near a dramatic drop-off zone, 2 miles from shore where shallow reef plunged into deep blue void. Jessica had researched this transition area extensively, knowing such boundaries often provided spectacular marine life encounters. She hadn't considered that these same zones served as prime hunting corridors for apex predators. Tiger sharks rank among tropical waters' most feared hunters, notorious for aggressive behavior and indiscriminate attacks on virtually anything moving through their territory. These massive predators stretch to 16 feet and exceed 1,400 pounds, marked by distinctive dark stripes across their powerful bodies. Tiger sharks operate as opportunistic feeders with devastating jaw strength. Bite forces surpassing 3,000 pounds per square inch drive teeth designed to slice through turtle shells, bones, and metal debris. Their morning had unfolded perfectly. Jessica and David explored shallow reefs together, discovering colorful fish communities and coral formations that justified the Bahamas' diving reputation. As afternoon progressed, Jessica grew increasingly drawn toward deeper waters beyond the reef edge, hoping to encounter large pelagic species in the blue void. David returned to their boat for lunch and rest, watching from the deck as Jessica continued solo exploration. Her swimming strength and diving experience made him comfortable with her independent ventures, especially in such clear water where he could track her movements 50 yards away. Jessica had been following what appeared to be a large sea turtle, swimming steadily from reef safety into deeper territory. She focused entirely on the dark shape ahead, excited about potential close-up photography of Caribbean marine life. She remained unaware that her pursuit led directly into a 12-foot female tiger shark's hunting grounds. The tiger shark had been patrolling the drop-off zone using deep-water concealment while scanning the reef edge for prey opportunities. These ambush specialists approached from below or alongside, employing excellent camouflage and stealth tactics before launching explosive attacks on unsuspecting victims. Jessica was 100 yards from their boat when the tiger shark struck. The massive predator erupted from the depths with devastating force, jaws spreading wide as she targeted Jessica's midsection. The attack materialized without warning. Jessica transitioned instantly from peaceful surface swimmer to being dragged underwater by 1,400 pounds of predatory power. The tiger shark's jaws clamped around Jessica's waist with crushing pressure, razor teeth slicing through wetsuit material and deep into flesh and bone. Her scream vanished as she disappeared beneath the surface, blood immediately clouding the crystal water around the attack zone. David witnessed his wife's disappearance in a violent explosion of thrashing water and crimson spray. He observed the shark's distinctive stripe pattern as it shook Jessica violently, powerful tail driving both predator and prey toward deeper water. The attack concluded within seconds. Jessica had vanished completely beneath the surface. The tiger shark's bite severed Jessica's spine and crushed multiple ribs, causing massive internal bleeding and trauma. Her resistance weakened as the shark maintained its grip, shaking her body with bone-crushing force before diving toward the bottom with its prey. Jessica's life ended in the deep blue water she cherished, far from boat safety and her desperate husband. David immediately radioed emergency services while starting engines and racing toward the attack site. By the time he reached Jessica's last position, only spreading blood and torn wetsuit fragments remained floating on the surface. Bahama Coast Guard units responded within 30 minutes, launching comprehensive search and rescue operations involving multiple vessels, dive teams, and helicopter support. They scoured the area for hours using sonar equipment and underwater cameras to examine reef systems. The tiger shark had vanished into the vast blue depths, carrying Jessica's body beyond recovery. Search efforts continued for 3 days, covering hundreds of square miles around the attack zone. Dive teams explored every reef cave and crevice while surface vessels dragged nets through deeper waters. Only blood-stained water and diving gear fragments provided evidence of the violent encounter. Bahamian authorities conducted thorough investigations and ruled Jessica's death a tragic accident. No fault was assigned to boat rental operations or location selection. Officials attributed the attack to an unfortunate encounter with a large tiger shark in natural hunting territory during peak feeding periods. David returned to San Francisco alone, devastated by losing his wife days into their honeymoon. Jessica's memorial service occurred at her university marine biology department, attended by hundreds of classmates, teammates, and professors who remembered her ocean conservation passion and fearlessness underwater. The tragedy emphasized the inherent risks of swimming in deep-water predator zones, even for experienced swimmers and divers. Several Bahamian tour operators quietly implemented new safety guidelines, emphasizing boat proximity and avoiding solo swimming in drop-off areas. Jessica's ocean passion had drawn her from safety into a predator's domain. For Rob McKenzie, decades of fishing experience and hands-on techniques would prove equally dangerous when overconfidence placed him alone in water with a hunting great white. It was June 11, 2017, and the waters off Port Lincoln, South Australia displayed every indicator of active feeding zones. Seabirds wheeled overhead in concentrated formations, diving repeatedly into baitfish schools driven surfaceward by larger predators lurking below. Rob "Bluey" McKenzie had commanded these waters for over 2 decades, establishing himself as Port Lincoln's most accomplished charter boat captain. At 45, this weathered Southern Ocean veteran possessed uncanny ability to locate fish when competitors returned empty-handed, combined with unwavering commitment to client success. Rob's distinctive nickname originated from his shock of prematurely silver hair and signature blue work shirts legendary throughout the local fishing community. He operated as a hands-on captain who never hesitated entering water when circumstances demanded, untangling lines, securing catches, or performing underwater equipment maintenance. This particular day found Rob working alone, testing new fishing electronics before busy tourist season commenced. His 35-foot charter vessel, Southern Cross, carried cutting-edge sonar systems and comprehensive safety equipment designed for deep-water operations. Rob had selected Tuna Alley, a deep-water corridor where southern bluefin tuna migrated during spawning runs. This zone also represented prime great white shark territory, as massive predators shadowed tuna schools targeting wounded fish. Great whites inhabiting South Australian waters achieve enormous proportions, with specimens exceeding 20 feet and surpassing 5,000 pounds. These apex predators gravitate toward high fish activity areas, often trailing vessels for hours while awaiting opportunities to scavenge wounded fish. Their attacks deliver lightning-fast devastation, capable of severing human bodies with single bites. Rob's morning proved highly productive, successfully hooking several large tuna while testing new equipment. Around midday, he connected with what felt like a massive fish, potentially a giant southern bluefin weighing several hundred pounds. As Rob worked the fish closer, disaster materialized. The massive tuna became entangled in the anchor line, creating a dangerous situation threatening equipment damage. The hooked tuna bled steadily, sending continuous blood streams into the surrounding water. Rob confronted a critical decision: cut the line, sacrificing fish and expensive equipment, or enter the water to manually untangle the mess. This hands-on approach had driven his decades of success. He grabbed a diving mask and fins before going overboard. Rob was unaware that his boat had attracted a 14-foot male great white over the past hour, drawn by struggling fish and blood trail. The massive predator circled at a distance, waiting for optimal opportunity. Rob dove toward where the tuna tangled in the anchor line, working rapidly to free valuable fish while avoiding sharp hooks. He focused entirely on the task, using both hands to manipulate lines while holding his breath in frigid water. The great white attacked from below and behind, rising through the water column with explosive velocity. Rob never detected the approach. His first indication of danger was the crushing impact as 14 feet of predatory power slammed into his body. Shark jaws closed around Rob's torso with devastating force, razor-sharp teeth slicing through wetsuit into flesh and bone. The impact drove Rob deeper as the bite crushed ribs and punctured vital organs. His diving mask tore away as the shark shook him violently, blood clouding the water. Rob's struggles proved brief against the overwhelming power. Shark teeth penetrated deep into chest cavity, severing major arteries and causing massive internal trauma. Within seconds, movement ceased as blood loss and shock overwhelmed his system. The great white maintained grip for nearly a minute before releasing the lifeless body and circling back to investigate still struggling tuna. The shark showed no further interest in Bob, having eliminated the perceived competition. Rob's body sank toward the ocean floor while his boat drifted unmanned, engine running and equipment deployed. The entangled tuna eventually broke free, leaving only blood and empty vessel as evidence. Southern Cross was discovered hours later by another fishing boat whose captain noticed the vessel drifting without anyone visible. The Coast Guard launched search operations, but Rob's body was never recovered. Maritime investigators determined Rob died in a shark attack while attempting to free equipment underwater. The incident prompted new safety recommendations for solo operations, emphasizing never entering water alone in shark territory. Rob's funeral drew hundreds of Port Lincoln fishing community members. His charter business transferred to his son, who implemented strict safety protocols prohibiting solo diving. Rob's hands-on approach hadn't protected him from a predator that stalked his boat. For Sarah Martinez, scientific curiosity would lead her into a massive great white feeding ground. It was October 3, 2013, and the water surrounding Guadalupe Island, Mexico, pulsed with equal measures of life and death. This remote volcanic outcrop, positioned 150 miles off the Baja California coast, had achieved worldwide recognition as Earth's premier great white shark research destination. Crystal clear water provided perfect visibility for studying massive predators, but also ensured that every movement, every mistake remained clearly visible to the sharks prowling below. Sarah Martinez had envisioned this moment throughout her academic career. At 22, this dedicated marine biology graduate student from UC San Diego was developing her master's thesis on great white shark feeding behaviors and social hierarchies. She had persuaded her thesis advisor, Dr. Robert Chen, to approve solo research at Guadalupe Island, arguing that undisturbed conditions were essential for collecting accurate behavioral data. Sarah embodied brilliance, determination, and absolute fearlessness regarding marine research. She had invested countless hours studying great white behavior through video footage and academic literature, convinced that her scientific approach and meticulous methodology would ensure safety even in the most perilous conditions. Her thesis research represented groundbreaking work, attempting to document how great whites communicated and established dominance hierarchies around feeding sites. The research station at Guadalupe Island operated as a small, austere facility utilized by scientists worldwide for studying great white sharks in their natural environment. Sarah had arrived alone, carrying sophisticated underwater cameras, water sampling equipment, and detailed behavioral observation charts. She planned a week-long data collection expedition that would establish her thesis foundation. Guadalupe Island's great whites rank among the world's largest specimens, with individuals reaching lengths exceeding 20 feet and weights surpassing 6,000 pounds. The island's abundant seal colonies provide concentrated prey sources, creating dense populations of massive predators that have developed cooperative hunting strategies and complex social structures. During peak feeding seasons, water surrounding the island can harbor dozens of great whites, all competing for identical, limited food resources. Sarah's initial 3 days had yielded incredible productivity. She had documented several large great whites, including a massive 18-foot female she nicknamed Scarface due to her distinctive head markings. Sarah had been observing sharks from the research boat's safety, using underwater cameras and hydrophones to record behavior without direct interaction. On her 4th day, Sarah made a fateful decision. She had observed apparent feeding behavior near the main seal colony and wanted to collect water samples while taking direct measurements of the feeding site. The scientific opportunity appeared too valuable to abandon, and Sarah convinced herself that her careful, methodical approach would minimize risk. Sarah selected an area directly adjacent to the island's largest seal colony, where hundreds of elephant seals and sea lions gathered during pupping season. The water was stained crimson with blood from recent kills, and the surface was littered with seal carcasses and feeding debris. This represented exactly the active feeding site Sarah required for her research, and precisely the location where great whites would display maximum aggression and territorial behavior. Sarah entered the water alone, wearing a black wetsuit while carrying sampling equipment and underwater cameras. She had planned to work rapidly, collecting water samples and measurements before returning to the research boat's safety. She remained unaware that her black wetsuit and swimming movements made her virtually indistinguishable from a wounded seal to the massive predators hunting in the area. A 16-foot female great white had been patrolling the feeding site, having recently killed a large elephant seal and establishing dominance over prime hunting territory. The massive shark detected Sarah's presence immediately, using her lateral line system to sense electrical impulses generated by Sarah's heartbeat and muscle contractions. Sarah focused entirely on the scientific work, collecting water samples and photographing the feeding site while completely unaware of the massive predator approaching from below. She had been in the water less than 10 minutes when the great white attacked with devastating force. The shark rose from the depths like a missile, massive jaws opening wide as she breached the surface with explosive power. Sarah was lifted completely from the water, her body disappearing into the great white's cavernous mouth as teeth closed around her torso with crushing force. The attack concluded swiftly and finally. The great white's bite force, exceeding 4,000 pounds per square inch, crushed Sarah's ribs and severed her spine instantly. Research equipment scattered across the water's surface as the massive shark shook her violently before diving beneath the surface with her body. Sarah's research boat was discovered drifting empty hours later by a Mexican Navy patrol vessel conducting routine island surveillance. Her scientific equipment floated on the surface: waterproof cameras, sampling bottles, and data sheets documenting her final observations of the very predators that had claimed her life. The search for Sarah's body continued for 5 days, involving multiple vessels, dive teams, and underwater cameras. The 16-foot great white had carried her remains into deeper water surrounding Guadalupe Island, where they would never be recovered. Only blood-stained water and Sarah's scattered research equipment provided evidence of the attack. Mexican authorities conducted a thorough investigation and ruled Sarah's death an accidental drowning during shark attack. No negligence was found regarding the research station or her university, but new safety protocols were immediately implemented, requiring all solo researchers to work with safety divers and maintain constant radio contact with shore-based support teams. Sarah's memorial service at UC San Diego drew hundreds of students, faculty, and marine researchers who remembered her as a brilliant scientist whose passion for understanding great white sharks had ultimately cost her her life. Her thesis research, compiled from surviving notes and video footage, was completed posthumously and became a landmark study in great white shark behavior. Sarah's scientific curiosity had drawn her into a predator's feeding ground during peak hunting season. Thanks for watching. Just when you think you understand the ocean's most dangerous predators, we're just getting started. Click the next video for stories that will show you why the ocean's deadliest hunters never forget and never forgive.